This next segment is going to be about something we do just about every time here on this show, is talk and express emotions. Yeah. So this is something in Canada that's happening, but it's not just Canada. We'll start with Canada. Draft Canada law would force social media companies to quickly remove harmful content is the headline. And then another one out of Canadian journalists, CBC, long-awaited online harms bill proposes higher sentences for spreading hate online. It says legislation would establish a 5-member digital safety commission to enforce new rules. So here we go. Great, more government bureaucracy, as if we didn't have enough through COVID. So especially up in Canada, very interesting. So let's just go to the bill and forget about the headlines now, and let's just see what the bill says. So this is Bill C-63. It's in the Canadian House of Commons, and it enacts what's called an Online Harms Act. It also amends the Criminal Code and the Canadian Human Rights Act. So it's really making some big moves in Canada. And you can go in there, and it actually defines hatred. So you have a human emotion now that's trying to be legislated and controlled by the government. It says hatred means the emotion that involves detestation or vilification, and that is stronger than disdain or dislike. So, you know, instead of just trying to work through,
got it, understood. Know exactly where to bowl that one.
Right, and you know, instead of trying to just work through this with conversation, with open dialogue, the government's going to step in and say, we're going to tell you how to deal with that emotion. And so let's go further into this bill here. So it says an offense motivated by hatred. So if someone does something and they find it's motivated by hatred, this is what it says: everyone who commits an offense under this act or any other act of Parliament, if the commission of the offense is motivated by hatred based on race, national or ethnic origin, language, color, religion, sex, age, mental or physical disability, sexual orientation, or gender identity or expression, is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for life. The only other thing you get imprisonment for life for pretty much in Canada is murder, manslaughter. So they're going to put that up there. If you say so, you know, you commit a hateful offense to somebody.
Can you imagine saying you're angry that you just found out your kindergartner was just shown images of transgender sex change operations? I mean, these are things we've seen in the Netherlands and England. I mean, imagine you say, wait a minute, I'm totally against that. Oh, you're being hateful? Because if you are, guess who's going to jail? I mean, that's just one example that pops in my head. There's like a million ways this could go south.
Right. Well, it can go south a lot more, and we're going to get into that right now. So in that, it's an offense. So someone could say, well, yeah, if someone's committing a criminal act, an offense, then if they're doing it in a hateful way, I don't know if anybody does a joyous offense, but they're going to tack this on for possible life imprisonment. But then it has pre-crime in there, written in there. So this is the actual language. It says fear of hate propaganda offense or hate crime. And it says a person may, with the Attorney General's consent, lay an information before a provincial court judge if the person fears on reasonable grounds that any person will commit, and that goes on to say, these hateful offenses. So if a person believes that someone may do something but hasn't done it yet, they can start a case. And then it goes on from there. And this is just a couple more things. It allows someone to make a complaint of a discrimination anonymously. So you don't get to know who's accusing you. And if found legit, if that hateful complaint is found legit, a maximum of $20,000 goes to that person. You can imagine how that's going to be abused. And then $50,000.
Wait, to the snitch? The snitch gets 20 grand for turning somebody in for potentially being hateful?
Wow. Absolutely. And the Canadian government up to $50K. So there's $70,000 that is on the line there for an anonymous, whistleblower, snitch, or whatever you want to call them. But, you know, more importantly, so we have the individuals that will abuse the system on this. It's written right in their bill. You can see how this can happen. But you have a government there, namely a leader there, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who seems to throw around these words in situations that they do not apply. Namely, when the truckers were protesting, the vaccine mandates, the vaccine passports, you know, the ones that didn't stop transmission, this was the headline. Trudeau accuses Canada truckers of hate, abuse, and racism as he tests positive for COVID after evacuation. You go in this article, it says Canadian Prime Minister blasted a convoy of truckers protesting vaccine mandates as showing disrespect to science and championing hate, abuse, and racism hours after announcing he had tested positive for COVID-19. I mean, so much wrong with that right there, but you can see the lining up. I mean, it's already happening. So imagine if this C-63 bill was already implemented and being used, if those wheels were greased, you have to wonder, Trudeau
assembling and saying, I don't want that vaccine that just failed you, Prime Minister. I don't believe it works. Well, that's now a hate crime because the Prime Minister that's now sick has decided that you're full of hate in being against the vaccine. Sure looked hateful, all those people dancing in the streets. I mean, it's really, you don't even have to use your imagination. This is really totally out of control. It's so dangerous. And I was just up in Canada speaking to people up there. They're really terrified of the way that they were treated during that. They shut down bank accounts, as we all now know. And now you have a bill coming out of that saying not only do we feel like we're justified in the future, we want to throw you in jail for life if you ever attempt to speak out against the government again and anything we want, any product we want to force on you.
And Trudeau used one of the most aggressive tools he had at the time, the Emergencies Act, which a court found he had no reasonable justification to do that. So imagine again if this, and this bill, this legislation is not a law yet. So people can fight this, and a lot of people are fighting this out, even outside of Canada. They're standing behind Canadians in trying to fight this.